You can dance? What's your name?
Sparkle.
She's still a child.
You should come and audition.
Come have a good time, have to drop it low. No need for rush now.
You call this a job?
Me now, come and show the way. With it, I jump up, party till late.
Sparkle, thanks for coming, eh? Leave my room. I love this.
You see me dancer?
Yo, Skinny wants us to be in his next music video. What? Sparkle, do you have any idea what you're getting yourself into?
And action!
We are the party, hey, with the heart and the mind as one. Hey, let's make this some real thing.
What you doing?
Dancing like a little jamet.
I tried my best.
Look up on the wine right now. Look up on the wine. Look up on the wine, let 'em know. Look up on the wine right now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cherry the Geek TV. My name is Joe Vanourney. She Paradise is a new film directed by Maya Cozier. It's opening on November 19th in select theaters and video on demand. It's a film about sisterhood, self-discovery, and sexuality, which uses dance and Trinidad's soca music scene as its playground. And we have the director, Maya Cozier, with us today. Maya, welcome to Cherry the Geek TV.
Thanks for having me.
I wonder about before we start, just kind of give people an overview of what they can expect if they buy a ticket to the film or rent it. What is She Paradise in a nutshell?
She Paradise is a coming of age film set in Trinidad about a young woman who tries to join a dance group. She fails at first, but eventually she succeeds, and she's pulled further and further into this, sisterhood that proves meaningful for her journey.
Now, this is your first feature-length film. I was looking at your background, and I saw that you made a short film called She Paradise before this. Was how different was the short? Was the short something you made and then you came up and said, we want to expand this into a feature, or was the short more of a proof of concept to try to raise funding to fund the feature?
Yeah, so the short was a proof of concept to raise money for the feature. I co-wrote the feature-length script with Melina over the course of a year, and we then had to decide how we were going to get the film made. This isn't a film or a story that's been made several times before. Pitching a film like this would be difficult because there aren't a lot of references for it. So it was really important to use the short as a way to explain the world and to give people a visual sense and a taste of what this would look like and feel like.
I see that you also had a short documentary that you made, which was about a dancer. So all of your work in progression, is it set in the dance world? Is that a background that you have? Are you a dancer that got into filmmaking? Is that, or just interested in dancing?
Yeah. So I used to, before I got into film, I worked as a dancer and a choreographer. I also modeled a lot for Carnival in Trinidad. And so this, the theme of, performance is one that I'm really interested in. But I have my thesis film actually before I graduated from SVA was about a retiree whose car gets mistaken for a taxi in downtown Port of Spain. And it's a very sort of dialogue heavy film that happens in a car. So not all of my films are about the dance world, but this one is. And interestingly enough, the first film I ever made, which might be the one that you saw, Shan, in 2013, right? Yes, that is also about a dancer.
Now, you shot the film in Trinidad, which is where you're from. Talk about the filmmaking community there. I haven't seen a lot of films come out of there. It's a beautiful country from what I was saying. Give a little background on the filmmaking community. Is there a filmmaking community there, or are you the?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of countries that don't really have a studio model or like a long industry or history of filmmaking at this really exciting time of self-discovery and figuring out what our films would look like and what we want to say, and even inventing a style, and I think there aren't a lot of films that have been made in Trinidad. BIM is one of our most classic films. It's kind of like a blaxploitation film, influenced by the 70s and has similar themes. And in recent years, we've had a few films come out of Trinidad, like Moving Parts and Play the Devil, which is on Hulu. Green Days by the River, which I think you can stream on Vimeo on demand. There's a handful, but it's like if we're thinking of how many by comparison, it's so small. You could probably watch all the films made in Trinidad in one day if you wanted. So it is a really exciting, pivotal time, and there is a small community, as you'd expect. Everyone knows each other. And there's just enough to form, I think, a crew on the most basic level. You have like, on the island, you have like 1, 2, or 3 DPs, one grip, so there's enough to kind of create this engine where we can make things, which is exciting as well.
It's really, like I said, beautiful to watch. When I've never been there, but I got a sense of place when I was watching it. I felt like I was there. I wanted to visit. There's a shot where Sparkle's on, I think she's on the roof or on a balcony rehearsing, and the city's in the background and the sun's going down, and it's just like, oh, this is beautiful. I want to be there. And there's shots that you do on the beaches where they're doing their photo shoot, and I was just like, oh, this looks like a beautiful country. You also have a lot of music, the soca music, and the culture. Talk a little bit about that and how why you wanted to make it very music. I mean, I know it's dance movie, so there's going to be music, but it's very music heavy. And talk about your choices there and wanting to include the music and the culture.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of soca music, which was has its roots in Trinidad from calypso, and we wanted to feature a lot of the soca artists who are actively performing, people like Anila Blackman and Olatunji, and then there's music from the region, the wider region. So we have some dancehall in there as well from Shensia. We just kind of wanted to, music is such a huge part of the Caribbean experience, of the culture, of community, of how people come together and celebrate themselves and even a certain identity. And having, that, experience, that oral experience as well of growing up in the Caribbean, where music was just always just like something that you heard, like, in the cars or from your neighbor or like in your space. It's just like, it's just such a huge part of the environment and the experience. So it was important to kind of capture that or have that, and filtered into the world, that those sounds into the world.
Talk about your amazing cast. Your lead, Onessa Nestor, who plays Sparkle. She's amazing. How did you find your cast? Or are these professional actors, or are they? Were you looking for dancers who can act, or were you looking for actors who could dance, dancers who could act? What was the process of putting your cast together?
Yeah, I think I was looking for both. I think when I started looking, I was looking for actors who could dance or dancers who could act. I was just kind of open. And in the end, we ended up casting mostly non-actors. So the lead has no acting experience. She's a dancer. And Mika is neither a dancer or an actor. Just she's someone that I reached out to on Instagram, and I asked her if she wanted to audition for a movie. So it was a very like casual and unconventional process of bringing everyone together. But there's no I didn't work with trained or professional actors, so that meant I had to do a lot of time rehearsing with them and doing table reads, and also getting them to comfortable and relaxed with the idea of being on camera.
It's very impressive because they come across as natural actors, and it's very authentic. So was there a process to get them to that point? They were a little rough around the edges at first, and you had to get them to that point.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was cast very similar to themselves, and for the most part, the women played themselves. But I did have to do a lot of preparation and rehearsal work to get them to be able to just naturally exist in front of the camera. So there were various techniques that I did, some rehearsals that have, a camera is such an intimidating object. So some rehearsals I'll have the DP come and not even film, but just have the camera there, like in their faces, so that they get to this point where they see this, very intimidating like object and just think whatever, it's just there bothering me. I don't care about it. And so that it doesn't change their performance or take them out of the moment. So there were like various techniques that I had to use in preparation to get them to then have that kind of naturalism on screen.
Now, you had done the shorts before you dived into this, your first feature film. What was the major challenges that you encountered making your first feature? Were there any challenges? Were there unexpected challenges that like, oh, I wasn't expecting this to be as difficult as it was?
Yeah, there were a lot of challenges. I mean, it just requires so much stamina, because for the short, I think it was a 4-day shoot, and an exhausted 4-day shoot, but it was like, okay, 4 days and it's done. Where a feature was like, it was like that level of intensity, but you just kind of had to keep going. And every day was, you're presented with a situation where you had problems to solve. But I think what made it possible was just like, I think, having this approach to filmmaking where, this is just, it's kind of like a riskier cinema, it's like, I'm not following any studio models. I'm not really sticking strictly to my script, but I'm approaching it with a kind of an open mind and a flexibility, and embracing like the fluidity of the process. And so when I was on set, if an actor didn't show up or something that was scripted didn't work out, it just meant that I had to sort of look at the space that it was available to me in front of me, and also feed off the energies of the actors in the moment and film based on what the environment was telling me. So it was sort of like allowing the environment to inform my process. But yeah, I did learn a lot. I learned so much from shooting my first feature film.
I'll ask you from the opposite end, were there any pleasant surprises? Something that went so well, like as you're making is like, oh, I had no idea that this was going to be turn out so great. What pleasant surprises?
If the pleasant surprises always, might be a very silly answer, but the pleasant surprises always came when they started dancing, because they would go off away from the choreography many times, and they would get so into it and get taken overboard even. And I remember somebody asked me like, so wait, the choreographer made them do a jump split in the road? Like, that doesn't seem safe. And I was like, no, that wasn't part of the choreography. They just went there and they did it. And so that was always fun and exciting to see like what energy they brought to the dance scenes.
was there, you only get to make your first feature film once, right? So you want to make it as good as it can be and make it perfect. Was there any specific goal that you had in co-writing the film and directing the film that you set out to make? Like, I specifically want to make sure that my first film is this, and vice versa. Is there something you consciously made an effort before you started filming and writing, like, I don't want my film to be this? Like, was that part of the process?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we were writing, we definitely did not want the film to have a fairy tale ending. We definitely did not set out to tell a moral tale or to teach. We didn't have a didactic approach to this story. We wanted to present a real and honest story for what it is and allow a sort of openness to interpretation and to discussion from it. And I knew with certainty that I wanted the film to have a very kind of a certain naturalism to it, and to feel, at times almost like we were veering into documentary filmmaking, to feel like this camera is not heavy-handed or overly stylized, but just sort of there living in that space and observing that world. So stylistically, I think I set out to achieve that, and I do feel like there's it's your first feature, so I do feel like there's a lot that I still want to do and explore moving forward.
Well, that's going to be my next question. What's next? You've got your first feature under your belt. What's next?
Yeah. So I working with the same writer of She Paradise to develop a limited mini series on Calypso Rose. She's considered a queer feminist icon in the Caribbean, but she's also, I think, one of the oldest performers to ever have a spot at Coachella. I think she performed at Coachella at 80. And she changed the title of Calypso King, which was a huge competition especially in the 70s and 80s. That was such a big deal to win Calypso King. It was such a male-dominated world, and she changed the name from Calypso King to the gender-neutral title of Calypso Monarch. So we really are exploring the world of Calypso music through the decades, through her point of view. And her life is so rich and interesting. So that's something that I'm co-writing now. And then I have one or two other feature films that I'm very much in the too early stages of to talk about yet. But I do have some other screenplays that I'm hoping that I can finish off in the near future. Yeah.
I can't wait to see what happens, because I'm rooting for you. You're in my corner. I'm in you're in my corner. I'm in your corner. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next, because She Paradise is just a wonderful first feature. She Paradise opening November 19th in select theaters and video on demand. Maya, thank you so much for chatting with us today on Cherry the Geek TV.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.